Good morning. My name is Scott Forcino with eXp Realty at a New York City metro area, and I started PlugIntro so that members of the real estate industry can promote themselves through introductions and can become local famous and meet who they should know. I'm pleased to say that I have Ross Sykes with me today from Homefront Lending from Fairhope, Alabama, beautiful area. And we're going to hear a lot about what's going on in the current market and how Ross serves others with his experience and his knowledge and some of his tips and tricks and pitfalls to avoid. Good morning, Ross.
Good morning, Scott. Thank you for having me on, sir.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's all you hear about is the changing market. We're now in late October 2022, so we don't know what the future holds. We know what happened in the past. So we'd love to hear a little bit about you. Tell us your background, would you please, and what you think is happening and what you think the future might hold.
Okay. A little bit about me. I grew up in South Florida in a little farm town. Eventually got out, went to college. From college, did the military lifestyle for a number of years, and then went to work for the federal government and woke up one day and I wanted to do something different. My heart was leading me somewhere else. So I took a leap of faith and came into the mortgage business. And then after being in the mortgage business for a few years, I'm like, why don't I not have my own mortgage company? So put together the pieces and opened Homefront Lending. And we're a little bit over 2 years old now. And we're a mortgage broker here in the Gulf Coast community. And we just serve people. We're in the people business to make sure people are taken care of, given the right education so they can make an informed decision and potentially save them some money when it comes to buying a home.
That's important.
Yes.
I would tell my staff in the past that we are number two, and we're two in every market. Number two is your home and your money, and your number one is your family and your health. So we were happy to be number two always. So that's important. I'm really impressed by you saying that. So you're in business 2 years, and we've had a beautiful run up in your first 2 years. And could you let us know about that and where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I didn't expect to get the business that I got. I deserved it, and I told myself for the longest time, man, I don't deserve this, but I do, because I put in the hours, the work, and be willing to, take care of people where it matters most. And that sometimes is in their pocketbook, but more importantly, it's the home where they're going to sleep at night, where they're going to have potentially a first-time home buyer, potentially have their first kid in that home. That's where they're going to have that nursery and that crib and things like that. So I'm very passionate. I'm passionate about people and making sure that they have what they need. And I'm pretty much a connector within the local business community to ensure that my clients are taken care of even after the deal is done. I think a lot of businesses and a lot of people get too involved with the transaction part of the business, where it'd be so much better if you just took a 30,000 foot view and see where this family is and what they need to get to where they're going.
Yes, real estate is not about houses, it's about homes.
It's relationships, man. At the end of the day, it comes down to people. And that's pretty much anybody that knows me, I lead from the heart. And I think that's why I get the business I get, is because people know that I'm going to shoot them straight. But more importantly, I care about them, and I care about them even after we stopped helping together, because I tell everybody at the closing table after we close, they tell me, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I was blessed with the opportunity. It wasn't a privilege. It was given to me. So with that, I don't want to be their mortgage guy just for this one deal. I want to be their mortgage guy for life. If they have any questions, if anything that goes on when it comes to a mortgage, I want them to remember my name. And more importantly, I want them to come back to me. And I really focus more on the client experience throughout start to finish of helping people to refine that and making it more personable, but also make it enjoyable. We work every day. We look at numbers. We're always in front of the internet and social media and whatnot. What's more importantly is, what if you connect with that person on the other side of the table here versus just here? It changes things. And it's great because you're able to, when you're out in your local community, they see you, they come up and give you a hug and how's your family doing? How are things going? So it hits another level in regards to people. And I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. And I feel like I surround myself with some pretty amazing individuals that also believe the same thing that I do. And we just work together and help each other out.
I'm impressed with that. You know, what you have two sides of every real estate transaction. That's the people and the professionals. And if you have stacks of files, like I know you have, it can be tough to keep track of them. And they're not just account numbers or just loan numbers. And everyone speaks their language with the DTI and the LTV and all this stuff between the realtor community. And there's really a core four. There's the lender, the realtor, the insurance company, and the title company, even the home inspector. It's really five. But we must work together because that person doesn't have a stack of files. They are just, this is their one deal. And, you know I've been scared getting into transactions as very, very recently, in fact. And I've done the same thing where people understand each document and why, and really the pitfalls to avoid. And, with the right experience, you can make someone comfortable and even throw in some humor there because they want this transaction and the closing experience to be a pleasure. Because let's get real, this is sometimes an ordeal to endure, right? You don't know if you're the buyer, when is your loan coming through? You hoping that you have enough funds or credit worthiness, and that's a big thing. So that's important. So what do you see now as far as the rates have let us know how much they've dramatically changed?
I mean, rates dramatically have changed. I mean, we're hitting into the sevens, as anybody that's in the mortgage market knows. And a lot of times that comes down to what the index, what the market's saying, what's supposed to happen. I think that's part of trying to control inflation, to stop from a recession happening. But we all know if you're talking about a recession, you're in a recession, maybe pre-recession. But really, right now is the time to be strategic in regards to how you're going to get the rate you want. And that's what we're really focused on, to make sure we have the tools, the processes, and partners in place so we can continue to deliver amazing rates even in this market.
Right. Well, that, as we say, I've seen recently that 3.5 interest rate, the loan amount, or I should say the payment corresponding to a 3.5 rate, is so different than the doubling, right? So you're buying much less house, right? If you only have a budget of $3,000 or $4,000 a month, let's say, what kind of house does that get you last year or now this year? Or I should say earlier this year now.
Right. A drastic difference there. And in regards to that, I think it's making people honestly not really second guess, but be more thorough processing in regards to their budget and what matters most to them. Is it always rate, or is it the monthly amount that they can afford to pay? Or are they willing to give up some niceties to continue to live the lifestyle they're in? So
yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that.
Maybe you're not buying a new car.
Right.
So, and because you all are working for the client, unfortunately, the client might have a memory from April, and they don't want to necessarily agree where they had their heart set on this house, or someone had a heart set on a price.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think the other thing, as well as I like to call it getting upstream. What are some of the ways as a mortgage professional I can get upstream? And right now I'm talking to individuals that, they're married or they're in college and they know they're going to buy. But sometimes it's going to take another year or two, because usually when people finish college, what's the first thing they do? If they're married and they finish college, because that's not uncommon these days, then the next thing they're they're going to get a career, and then they're going to buy a house. So getting upstream to go ahead and let those people know the education piece years in advance so they can plan, versus just be a short-term thinker. Short-term thinker doesn't always work. And from a long-term approach, okay, where do I have to start to go from here to get to here? So focusing more of our marketing and also connecting with those individuals. They're 2 years out, because 2 years from now, those are people you're going to be able to help. And the best way to measure that is the people you're helping now, where were they 2 years ago? And be more thoughtful in regards to, okay, your ideal person that you're going to help. There is no ideal person. Every person's different. Every person's credit scores are different. Every person has different debt. They're in a different place in their life. So all you can do is make sure you're giving enough information to help as many people as possible. So that's pretty much
Right.
where we've been at.
I agree. And that's the consumer awareness, and that's the consumer you mentioned off camera, the education, where they have to understand what's possible now and what's in their best interest if they consider it. You know, you mentioned the proper information to make the best decision for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that decision, sometimes you got to be mindful that you're not the person making that decision for them. You're the person that's holding their hand and giving them the details of what they need, and hit them where it matters most. And what I mean by that is really get to know your people, get to know your relationships. And it might sometimes take you to say, okay, these are people I've worked with in the past. I really don't want to work with them anymore, and this is why. You kind of can't do that. There's people that we all run across, because when you're dealing with everyday life, you can't please everybody, right? And you can't be everything to everybody. But what I really encourage my clients, and whenever I'm communicating with them and we're getting things going, if some of the clients are a little slow on getting us information and documents to get them to closing, I would typically say, hey, Mr. or Miss, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you, but I can't want this more than you want this. I need you to help me. And once you cross that line, it tends to, they will get you the information they need. But again, you can't assume. You don't know what's going on in people's lives. You don't know if they've just lost a loved one, or they have kids at home that are sick, or they're having problems at their work or their relationships. You don't know. So you kind of never assume. Just sometimes it takes you having those relationships and those conversations, that the conversations aren't always pretty. But as long as they're real and they're authentic, and they're generally coming from the right place, it's good.
Well, you know, as you say, we're dealing with the public, and we're dealing with a leading force in our society now is social media. So everyone has a voice. But I really want to mention three things to you from our private conversations. There's misinformation, there's trust, and there's resources. So we're the dangerous part of everyone having a voice, people who are less qualified or maybe really not having your best interest in mind, are, I should say, is this notion of misinformation and how that could really steer someone wrong. So, I mean, I brought up to you this, what I consider to be a marketing piece. Now, lending has been around a long time, and paying a buyer's closing costs has been around a long time. But now we have this fad, this craze of a program as what's the 2-1 buy down. So when your clients and contacts hear about this, I want them to hear it from you. What is it and why?
Well, the 2-1 buy down is basically the buyer's going to buy a home and making a contract, and with them getting seller concessions for the seller to pay for discount points. 2-1 buy down, they're paying 2 full discount points down, which typically they qualify, say, for a 7% rate. The first year they'd have a 5% rate. After 1 year anniversary, on that anniversary, it goes up to 6% rate. Then 1 year later, it goes to 7, but it doesn't go above 7. Now, there's some misnomenclatures in regards to that product. One, if you have a client that is going to a home, obviously they have to qualify for that 7% rate. But what I don't like, and you don't hear anybody talking about it right now, is that the 2-1 buy down. Say you're buying this and you know the rate is just, you're just not happy with the rate. Well, you can use those seller concessions towards closing cost to help offset less money you coming to the table. Or the other part is, say you know the rate you have, you're not going to have forever, because you know you're going to refinance out of it eventually. When does that mark happen? Is it 6 months from now, a year and a half from now? We don't know when that is. The market dictates that. So when you're going to go turn around and say a year from now, rates are 2% better than what they are now. Say they're in the 5s, and you go to refinance. Guess what? that money that seller paid towards their discount points, yeah, you got the monthly payment on your mortgage for that first year a little bit lower than what you would have had, but it goes to waste versus closing cost. You can't get that money back. So that money you're paying for closing costs now that the seller's not contributing because they're using towards discount points, it's there. So I've not really actively marketed that product. We have it. If somebody wants it or they feel it's really a need, then obviously we're going to educate them. But if you know a client's going to be refinancing within a year and a half, why do it? Why not have the customer say, okay, I know my mortgage payment is going to be a little high the next year or two, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. And as we get closer to that light, we will be more in a normal environment. And say we go into a recession. Well, what happens with a recession? Rates come down. So you might be in a better position for that. And a lot of people are saying, well, 2-1 buy down, I can get the mortgage I want and also be able to get the home I want. I was like, yeah, but if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is true. So be mindful of that and pay attention to the other things. I mean, as a buyer coming into the market looking to buy a home, pay attention to box A on the loan estimate. What other fees are there? Are people charging processing, underwriting, admin fees, origination fees? If you are paying that, why? You have a susceptible product out there by working with a mortgage broker where you can save yourself some significant money and be able to get to the home. But that closing cost, say you get the 2-1 buy down, right? I'm going to make it real simple. Say the seller gives you $8,000 towards that buy down. Well, you got to pull out and pay what closing costs typically run 2.5% to 3% of the loan amount. So you're paying $6,000, $7,000, right, for those closing costs. You could have saved that money, use that money the seller's paying you for seller concessions to pay it out down the closing costs, and you have that little nest egg in a savings account to help you with those mortgage payments for the next 2 years versus going with the 2-down buy down. Mm-hmm. And if you refinance, guess what? You still get that money in the bank. So that's the long-term play. And that's the way I see it. Again, there's a lot of people marketing it. Even in my market, I've not actively marketed myself because it's not always the best situation for every client. And that's where it is. Sometimes people need help from seller concessions to pay off a credit card that's too high for them to qualify. So
right.
There's other options.
Ross, when I've seen this marketing approach, which I have my own resentment towards it because this always could have been done. So why didn't lenders talk about it before? Number one. Number two, there's no law that says that a seller is going to be willing to do this. So that's an imagination. That's a speculative approach. We have no idea if sellers are going to be on board. They may want every dime. That's number two. And number three, there's only a possibility that rates will go down. So essentially, the people who would never have signed up for an adjustable rate are taking an adjustable rate.
Right.
Those are three real problems. And just to simply throw up a worn out meme on social media that, number one, your competition sees, and they're all copycats right now, you're not giving anyone anything of value. So there's no way to build trust. The first person that does that goes into that approach that the realtor says you can do this and the seller says no way, or the next time 2 years goes by and the rates are at 8, you think there's trust? There's going to be lawsuits, let alone trust. And then the lenders, as you know, are going to say, well, our disclosure didn't say, because the disclosure is written by lawyers. It's tight as a drum. So it's going to be your name because there's no way that they're going to be bound by this promise. So everyone leaves the buyer unhappy, maybe unable to pay the payment.
Possibly.
I mean, so that's where, that's where trust comes in. And if I have my little rant that says that trust is under attack because all the financial resources, the technology is pushing consumers directly to providers. Rocket Mortgage, Q, whatever that Rocket, another one, Quicken. These younger millennials, I'm old, so don't go by me, but people think they're going to, Carvana, get a car, get Amazon, YouTube, everything is going to be, I'm going to get a mortgage just on my phone. And we're not even close to that. But culturally, That's what these 35 and 40-year-olds or even 25-year-olds are thinking. So if you don't have trusted resources, for instance, referral partners, and that's why, I put together PlugIntro, because if you're not giving something, either a client or a colleague or a referral partner, something that makes you unique and makes you offer them something for their benefit and not keep score, how do you think you're going to build trust? How are you going to have a cross referral exchange by not, there's another thing. Doing your job is not enough. I asked lenders, what do you provide agents? Good service. They said, you all do. And if you don't, you shouldn't be in the business. So what do you do outside your transaction? In this case, locking arms with a referral partner, whether it's a local business owner or an agent, is the only way to do this, and is to create a reciprocal relation. That could be done at lunch, but you can't go to lunch every day. That can be done with phone calls and texts. You can't base your day on that. But if you're in a Facebook group such as our PlugIntro, and you're on Facebook anyway, so instead of doing something to the masses, why not, like you are, do something to the hand-picked, selected, invitation-only group? And that, to me, because I'm a realtor, and I said to you, hey, Ross, what about that 2-1 buy down? I would believe that you would tell me it's not always the best thing. It may not be the best thing, but now we're in something together. We've joined forces to help the public. Instead, mark my words, 2024, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people with this 2-1 buy down.
Yes. And I think, like I said, I don't hear many people, like, from a mortgage perspective, everybody's, I guess it's the golden ticket, right? It's the golden bells and whistles that are in front of you. And that's just what they're going off from, because, they're starving. They didn't do what they should have been doing 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, is building real, authentic relationships with people that even when the market slows down, you're still their guy, but they're trying to throw bait out there to try to get someone to buy it. Well, if the wrong person bites it and you bring it in, it might not be the best deal, because you have other factors that we can't control as well that are part of that process. Say the seller says, okay, yeah, I'll give you $8,000 to buy down your discount points and everything. I know you're covering closing costs. I'm selling the house for what I want to sell it for, so I'm still going to net pause on the other side of it. But what if you're halfway through the deal, you got the earnest money out there, you paid for the appraisal, you paid for the home inspection. What if that home doesn't appraise? Because if that comes out, guess what? More than likely, you're going to reopen negotiations with the seller, and the seller is going to be like, well, my home didn't appraise for what it's worth, and I still want to sell it, but I can't give you that $8,000. I can give you a little bit, but I can't give you $8,000. So then you're sitting there is like, okay, what do I do? You're in the same position. So it's not for everybody. There are people that it's for, but for the most part, it's not for everybody. Take that money, put it in a savings account so you have it.
Right. Well, Ross, to think about this, and when you were saying that, I was thinking this thought. The 2-1 buy down is not a computer program where you put it in, you press enter, and it works, right? It's not that. I call a real estate deal kitchen table logic. And what makes you think that listing agents are going to be able to accurately convey to Ma and Pa Kettle this information? I'm telling you that all their friends, the sellers have friends who made a lot of money. All they heard, over asking, 3 days on the market, 2022. You tell me that people are going to be so willing with their cultural biases and prejudices and their sense of entitlement to just throw money at something? They'll say, no, let the guy get a mortgage. It's not, this is real. Why do we think that a person, and I'm not insulting my realtor brothers and sisters, how it did fewer than 4 deals. So you're asking basically a part-timer to be able to give this information. I could see sellers dumping listing agents for even suggesting this.
It's a fine line. You very well could, and you can lose a relationship over that as well. So, and I think there's agents out there that are very, very smart and very intelligent. And a lot of times when it comes down to numbers and stuff, they leave it to their mortgage person. They stay
Absolutely.
in their lane and they like stay your lane. Those agents, by the way, I love to work with because they allow me to do what I do best. And when I'm at my best performance, guess what? They're communicated with weekly, also during the process. Their clients are taken care of. And guess what? 24 to 48 hours before closing, they can actually call and talk to their mortgage person, even if it's on the weekend or on the evenings. So that's what, I mean, that's what separates us. And if you're a mortgage professional that's not doing that, do more of it. Because if not, you're leaving money on the table, but more importantly than money, you leave relationships on the table that potentially you guys could help each other in the future.
I'll tell you right. I think the same way. I spoke to a top producer recently, and she said, "What is this thing everyone's talking about?" And I said, "You know what? I'm not an expert, but I could tell you that I do know a few things. That one, we don't know if sellers are going to say yes, and two, we don't know what the rates are going to be. So how could you base a transaction on such shaky ground?"
Right. Well, yeah, you got to be careful where the money moves, right? It either goes up or down or stays where it's at for a little bit of time. But if you follow the money and look at the benefit in regards to the 2-1 buy down versus not, the 2-1 buy down as a buyer leaves less money in your bank because you're paying for closing costs.
Right.
So
you and I are spending time talking about this one recent innovation or marketing technique or approach. We're doing that, but really it speaks to a much bigger message, and that is we don't have enough people to speak to, and we don't offer enough value outside the transaction. So now this is some attempt to say, I have a secret weapon here. Well, we all have it, and it's not that useful. I bet you it's not going to be used that much, Ross. I bet you it's really not. And I think that, like you say, that people haven't given enough and been enough of a resource to others are going to find themselves resorting to these, sleight of hand, gimmicky tricks to catch attention.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like the non-QM market has done that too. All of a sudden you have lenders from everywhere that are coming into the non-QM market to basically they're hedging their spread is what they're doing because they're hurting in other areas. So they're trying to gain more market share in others and opening themselves up for other products. Now, those other products, they don't have experience doing them. You have non-QM lenders that's all they do all day, every day. So as a mortgage broker, you need to vet your lenders to make sure they're going to be able to do what they say they're going to do versus just, hey, just send it in and we'll see what we can do. That doesn't work in this environment. So to make sure, because, you talked about earlier in regards to ARMs. Okay. ARMs pricing now, I mean, traditionally, when you have a higher rate environment, you have a little bit more, I guess, room to have a lower interest rate in the ARM market. Right now, you're not seeing that. ARMs aren't that much different than what the actual rates are. And again, that's all based on control of the bond market, which the Fed's trying to do to hedge inflation. And it seems like a lot of things that they've done it's been very difficult for them. And hence it's difficult for the buyers who want to buy, or it's a little bit more difficult for them to buy. So ask yourself this: if you're a buyer or a potential buyer the next year or two, what do you need to do now to be ready when you're ready to buy? Do you just need to wait? I don't think that's the answer. I think what you need to do is look at how much money you've already lost during the years that you've rented, and how much your landlord, if they wanted to turn around tomorrow and say, hey, we're going to sell the house, and they sell the house, you're out of a home that you're renting, potentially going into another home that you're going to pay more rent for. So, but they're going to make that equity. So would you rather make the equity, or would you rather give it away to somebody else? And that's what investors are doing. Investors are coming into the market and eating up all the equity they can because they know over the long-term play, I think we're in one of the top markets. And I think across the U.S. As a whole, You have more equity in your home now than you've ever had. Well, if you wait to buy in 2 years from now, yeah, the rates are a little high. But guess what? On average, say on a very conservative basis, the home increases 5% over the next 2-3 years. That's 5% you wouldn't have that you gave away. So that's
Good
what
point.
I see. Either pay it now or pay more later, or either make your equity now or make more equity later. That's the philosophy I come up with that.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Nobody's saying that. I'm happy you said that, because that makes complete sense to me. And I think a borrower would appreciate that type of advice.
It's real. It's real. It's authentic. And if it's not for them, it's not for them. I mean, Scott, from what you're seeing, what do you think the plays in regards to the equity market people are doing? Obviously, HELOCs are out there that people are taking money out as they need to. But what about people who have equity in their home and they need a bigger home because they just had another kid, or they need a smaller home because the kid just moved out and they don't want them to come back? What are you saying to those, to that audience?
Well, from my experience of what I see, the problem we're having is people are in love with their current rate, which is on 2015, 16, 17 legitimate rate, and then they're not going to give up that payment for something what they may consider to be absurd. So that's countered by this big yet diminishing load of cash from their sale. And keep in mind, these are primary residences, so this sale is exempt from capital gains. So this is real money. This is tax-free income. There has been recently a huge increase in listings, but there's a real decrease in loan applications and showings. So think about it. There's more houses on the market and fewer capable. So that means the price will drop. They have dropped. And that's something that I use. I mentioned to you off camera that I know that other companies are pushing this. You know, the lenders are in their lane and the realtors in their lane, because there's this, what I call monopoly money. The equity is not something you went to work for and saved. It just came up artificially, even if it's appropriate. It went up. So if any of those people are ever going to consider a price decrease, or they call it a price improvement, and I don't know why a seller would ever consider less money an improvement, but that's the term. So what people are saying, hey, listen, that money wasn't real in the first place. Why not just skip the 2-1 buy down a rate, ask Ross what would get you a 5 or a 5.5% interest rate, and you might tell me 3, 4, 4, 5% towards the discount points. You're going to throw away 5% on the nonsense, knee-jerk, reflexive price decrease. Why not throw it to the buyer? Why not make your house the most attractive one out there? So I think there's going to be resorting to, and I know other professionals in my area have started this. It's like the anti 2-1 buy down, because this is a fixed rate, which people are going to be attracted to, versus a de facto adjustable rate, which is not speculative. I mean, it was only speculative. So there are more houses. There are fewer buyers. You know those lock boxes we use, the electronic ones?
Mm-hmm.
You know those?
Yes.
Showing, I mean, there's no lying. They're showing a dropping to the ground use of showings. And where do you think that's going to go in the holidays or the winter?
Right. Yeah, it's still down. Is that what?
Yep.
What? I
well,
mean,
like any crisis.
So with prices, okay, with that's a great point to watch in regards to what is the inventory on those lock boxes, down or up. That tells you exactly what the market's doing versus anything else, because that's what people are using. But also, I wonder, paired with that, how would you relatively take the volume on those versus the for sale by owners? why people are going more for sale by owner than they would eventually. But, we don't see a lot of for sale by owners in this market because, agent's going to represent you the best way to make sure you're protected and covered throughout the whole transaction. So I'm always pro agent when it comes to that.
Of course. Well, for sale by owners, list their properties within less than a month, about 95+% of the time. So there's realtor being a nod, as though we're really crediting the homeowners with the ability to transfer these properties. Look, better than I do, of course. The lending is an art. I say that these transactions are sophisticated financial and complicated legal transactions. There's a lot of money riding on these things. And do you really think you could do this for the second time or the first time in your life without a professional who has a lot of laws and a lot of education and has relationships with you? And, Ross, you hit my hot button. Imagine letting right now I'm with you. I wouldn't let anyone walk in this house right now. But if I put an ad on Craigslist, I would. You don't even know who anyone is.
Yeah, you never know. So it's always good to have someone that's vetted by another realtor professional.
Sure, and it's important they work together. So, I'm happy that you're part of this PlugIntro platform, and I want to say that again, we're really pleased that you are. Keep in mind that you have really unique power as contrasted with your competition. You now are giving your local members of the community and your trusted agent referral partners a chance to promote their business in a way that benefits all of the members. It's not me, it's all of us. And we suggest people don't keep score. Plus, it's really, really easy to be heard, and it's really easy to involve others. I've experienced great success with my platform, and especially in your area, there's no one else using it. So I think that in the very near future, when your local merchants know that there's a way that they can meet others, because I don't think business owners necessarily meet each other that often. So this is a great chance to connect them.
Yeah. And also as business owners, you're always busy, right? So sometimes the best way for them to meet is while you're at the office, you curve out a little bit of time to connect through PlugIntro. And it's a way, it's then, it's now. So you don't have excuses of, I got to close, I got this, that. You just make it happen when it's most important part of the day for you.
Right. I call it on demand. Now our TV streaming services, you watch what you want when you want. It's on demand and it's cloud-based. And a lot of other organizations that I've been part of are fantastic. And yes, you get to meet people and realize, what you're both maybe into and communicate. And I love that more than anyone. But people with kids and careers, you don't have that freedom all the time.
Yes, very true. Because life happens sometimes, right? And life happens when we least expect it. So just be blessed that the day.
And listen, Ross, no one could have ever imagined. We have inserted the word COVID once, but in New York and the northern parts of the country, that altered our lives forever. So people are far more accustomed to communicating like we are now without an objection.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the best thing about COVID. It allowed people to adapt and overcome, like we say in the military, to adapt their surroundings and to, change business up a little bit from what they usually have done. And that has impacted us directly from the real estate perspective, because now a lot of people can work from anywhere. So that gives them the benefit to be able to live wherever they want with internet reception. So, but it changed the game in regards to business and entrepreneurs and the ways that people typically were able to do business before versus what they could do now. So I think with all bad things, good things come out of it. Lessons learned, might we say? But I believe that was the best thing that happened during the COVID time.
I do too. And increased time with family, because you didn't always. I was coming home at 8 o'clock at night. Now you're much more around.
Yeah. Well, we got to connect with family again. Back in the 70s, 80s, families had dinner together, they've seen each other more, versus now in the society as someone who's works. I mean, we're go, go, go. And yeah, we got lunch, but we're doing it at work. We're going here, going there. And COVID allowed the family dynamics to come together again. And sometimes they spent more time with each other than what they wanted. But it allowed them to say, okay, we got this. Through the bad, we got family. And family is the most important thing out there.
I'm with you, my man. Well, stay close. We're going to make sure that the members you select and the future members learn more about you. This is your interview event series. We're here all year. And I know that with our behind the scenes efforts and your knowledge and experience and expertise, we'll do good for yourself and for others.
Thank you, Scott, sir. I appreciate you, sir. And very thankful and actually honored, humbled for you to allow me the opportunity to be on this.